Hey guys, I want to thank you for downloading this brand new episode from the podcast C's Get Degrees. For any updates or any brand new episodes, go visit Apple iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music today. And for all the swag lovers, go visit www.etsy.com/shop/the-Chad-M-Smith for any brand new swag coming from both the podcast and CH brands. And for any speaking engagements for anything, go visit www.thechadmsmith.com. Once again, guys, thank you very much and enjoy this brand new episode. Hey guys, welcome to C's Get Degrees. We have a phenomenal guest named Kim. Is it Lengling?
Lengling, yep.
Awesome. I got it. She is the host of the podcast Let Fear Bounce. Actually, she is the author of 3 books, or a 3 trilogy type book where it's When Grace Found Me.
3-book series, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let you have the mic here and let you grab the floor here, but enjoy this. Welcome to the show. And like I said, let's improv this. Let's have some fun.
Okay. Well, I will. I'll start with the books then, since that's right at the top of my head. I began last August, sitting on my back porch, and it was a beautiful summer day, and was watching my dog chase bunnies and birds and all of that. And I remember a very soft, warm breeze, the kind that feels like a whisper on your skin, and the sun shining. And I remember it was so clear how the sunbeams were coming through tree branches and birds were twerping, in the yard. And I all of a sudden was overcome with this incredible feeling. It was almost like it comes from behind and just whooshes through. And I got goosebumps on my arms and legs and on the back of my neck. And it was almost frightening because I didn't know where this all was coming from and why it was so strong. And I had this whisper in my heart, and it simply said, I am on the move. And I literally did this. I turned and looked behind me. I'm like, who said that? And I was actually kind of frightened. But then this incredible peace came over me. And then I realized I had tears just streaming down my face because I looked down and they're landing on my shorts. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm crying. And I just kept feeling I am on the move. And I had been sitting there prior to that, dwelling on things from the past. And I lived with PTSD due to sexual assault while I was in the military. And some days, those demons will creep in. And that was one of those days. On one of the most beautiful summer, peaceful days, I let the D-man creep in. And that's what I call Satan, the D-man. And he came creeping in. And God came, though, too, as he does. And I'm so thankful that at least my heart is open enough to recognize him when he does show up. And I sat there and just kept hearing, I'm on the move. I'm on the move. And I'm crying. And this is going to sound crazy, and I really don't care if anyone believes me or not. I looked out in my backyard. I live in the country, so I'm surrounded by fields and woods. And I looked out towards the back of my yard, and there was kind of like those old black and white real movies that kind of skip around,
Yeah.
It was very faint. My whole backyard turned into that. And it was only for a second. But within that second, I saw a young lady on her knees with her head in her hands sobbing. I mean, gut-wrenching sobs, those kinds that just, shake someone's whole body. And I saw that just in a split second. And then I sat there and I thought, oh, that was me. That was me. Years and years ago, that young lady on her knees with her head in her hands, crying out to a God she didn't think she believed in. And I am on the move. I am on the move. And I said, I've already shared my story, but I just kept coming. I'm on the move. And I thought, oh, you want me to ask others to share their stories, those things that have hurt them, that have left them with invisible scars. You actually want me to do that? So there I am questioning God, arguing with God. We all know how well that turns out.
Oh, I know who's going to win that conversation.
Yeah.
My faith is strong enough to understand that question.
So I reached out to a few ladies and said that I knew that were Christians and said, hey, you want to try this? This is on my heart, really, really strong. And I was so filled with energy. I was like bursting out of my skin. I said, you are not going to believe what just happened to me on my back porch, And they all said yes. And then they put the word out. And within a week, I had 20 women that wanted to participate in this book. And I went, okay, God, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Am I really the one you want to do this? And it was a resounding, yes, you're going to do it. And I'm like, okay. So I started that journey, but then ladies kept coming from all over the world, all different countries, different backgrounds. They had belief. Some of them had no belief, but they still wanted to participate. And I'm like, oh, he wants me to be a nugget tosser. I'm going to be tossing those little mustard seeds.
I never heard it that way. That's why I'm laughing. Yeah. I'm laughing in a good way, not a bad way. I'm like, that's awesome.
So, and the first book does have two ladies in that had no belief. None, not in God anyway. And over the journey, the book was just released 5 months ago. It took 5 months to get it all together, which is actually a really short amount of time from beginning to publish. It was just released right before Christmas. And over that 5-month period of time, one of the two ladies that had no belief had a big shift during that whole process. And she lost her mom due to COVID. And there was another shift. And I have a private Facebook group for the co-authors. And we fellowship in there and chit chat and share things and pray for each other. And several days after her mom passed, she had private messaged me and said, amazingly, Kim, I think I can feel your prayers. And I just went, oh, hands in the air. And yeah, a big shift. And I thought, okay, God, maybe that book was for her. Maybe that she was meant to be on that journey, obviously. So if not even a single book sells and that big shift came in her heart,
you're all good to go.
That's right. Praise the one most high on that.
Yeah.
So that's how the books came about, and it turned into a 3-book series. So now I've got, we just started on volume 2, and the stories are coming in from an additional 20 ladies from around the world. And I've got 12 ladies already signed up for volume 3, and some that are still waiting, to make sure that they want to participate. But an amazing journey with the books. So that's pretty exciting. And it all came about in such a weird time that we're living in, and there's so much fear and depression and all kinds of people experiencing mental health issues and such in this isolation time, and just the weirdness and the unknown. No one knows, and I decided during this time frame that I have to let fear bounce. I can't let fear land on me, because that's just like I'm opening up the door and asking the D-man to come on in and spend some time with me. Sit down, dark one, and have a coffee with me, and it's, and I don't want to do that.
He follows us enough. We don't need to let him in anymore.
Him and his little minions, they're all boogers, that's,
I joke around. It's like you look back and you pass a bus station, and I'm not throwing people under there, but it's like every time you look back, you got these freaking minions running after you.
I know. I know. So I'm always like, no, you and your minions, not today. Not today. I don't have time or the energy for you.
They got little labels on them. It's like porn addiction, alcohol, all that fun stuff. And I ain't putting any labels on that stuff. But you look back and it's like, hey, buddy, come join me. Have fun.
I know. It's like, yeah, anger, hatred, depression, loneliness. So sure, come on in. I'm worthless. Yep, you're absolutely right. Come on in and join me in my worthlessness,
And by the way, here's a joint, buddy. Enjoy the ride.
Yeah, and while we're at it, grab that bottle of gin or vodka or whatever.
And me and you are laughing at this, and I'm gonna go on like the depression side of it, and I'm not even gonna bring that word up. The last, how many months are we a year in lockdown? I'm in Wisconsin, so lockdown's a little bit different versus like the New Yorks and the Cali.
Right.
I think my birthday, which is March 11th, is pretty much, I think lockdown occurred March 13th, but I launched this podcast last May. I will tell you this, I'm going to be one of the few people that, in our industry, all of us are very happy for COVID. Well, we're sad for COVID, like deep down. A lot of us are very positive, very happy, very uplifting during this time frame, because we know it's key to be that way with all the destruction, the darkness, and all that stuff. I don't want to live 2020 again, but I will tell you this deep down, it was the best year of my life rolling into 2021, that if that would come again, I don't want to be arrogant and say I would love for it to happen again. It's not even that. It's just everything I experienced in that time frame with some darkness, like there's some deaths involved and some cancer involved and stuff in the family, but I will take a year like that into 2021 any day of my life, because of, and you get it too, like when that comes, all of a sudden you're on this journey and God grabs it and you're like shot off like a rocket.
Yep.
And I can't even explain it. Like my big deal was addiction and mental health. That was my big deal. Multiple addictions. So like porn, alcohol, all that stuff. So like the alcohol would cause me to get, obviously sex, drugs, rock and roll. In that, alcohol though came to, way back, was like seeing porn since I've been 10 years old. And it's not that, it's like, hey, here's a Playboy magazine. I had older family members and stuff. So it just rolls into that. So like the first movie I blatantly remember was Caddyshack and Animal House.
Yeah.
And obviously it's in there. And not saying my life's perfect. It's still, whatever. But like that wrench kind of carried into alcohol, carried into what we thought was normal. Here I'm dropping a half bottle of alcohol a night into whatever else, chasing, going to the bars, doing all the, dirty stuff, to where kind of like same situation. All of a sudden someone's like, it rolled into divorce, a bad trauma occurred in the divorce. And I just buried myself in alcohol. And when COVID hit, prior to that, like I had some faithful, strong church women saying, dude, clean up. And I'm like, no, clean up. And I explained it on the previous podcast, like literally 20 minutes before this. For weeks, when you guys are in sync with God and whatever, Holy Spirit, Jesus, whatever you guys believe, when you're in sync, and I'm going to say in sync, like in it, all of a sudden you start seeing these repeated patterns every week. And every week I saw that stinking stupid little, sorry, I'm having test, whatever, like scripture saying, clean up, be sober, be vigilant, every freaking week. And finally, like I had this occur and, pissed off some family members and stuff. And yeah, that's when the rock bottom hit. But I cleaned up, and I cleaned up in November, and I'm like, okay, how am I going to get through this? Because I want to do concerts. I want to go, hang with the boys. I'm like, okay, we're through winter. All of a sudden, concert season starting to hit in March. All of a sudden, COVID. And I'm like, okay, what is, and all of a sudden, like everything got completely shut down, which sucks mentally, but it actually forces you to talk to him every day, forces you to slow down, get your stuff right, go prepare. And I was dropped into this, and I'm going to say I wasn't directed to podcast, but like all of us in this industry are pretty much dropped into this, or say, hey, a friend come up, say, hey, start this, do that. I had friends saying, dude, you had so much funny stories when you were about the past. Come and record it. But we know you're clean. We want you to tell people why you cleaned up and all that stuff. So I did that, and halfway through, I did that. We released it, and I had like a dozen people say, hey, dude, start your own. I'm like, oh, here we go. And the same thing like you. It's like, here we go.
Yep.
And obviously you got growing pains with it, good and bad. It takes about, okay, what is it, May, March? I'm about 10 months into it. It takes about 6 months to find your legs. Like I'm on episode 41, we're getting the process, but I believed in my mind is I needed to put that 10,000 hours in.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably, was it The Outlier, I think is the book it's called, something on that. I just remember it's 10,000 hour rule.
Yeah, I don't know.
But so I just blasted. I'm like, I'm gonna join the podcast. I'm gonna go to this show. I'm gonna go do this show. And finally, I'm gonna say the last couple of weeks, it's finally people are like, hey, dude, we're loving the stories. We're loving the inspiration. We could tell you're having fun. Like me and you were joking around earlier. And it's very warm on the inside, but I'm like, hey, the journey's just beginning. Yes, I have to enjoy the moment. I have to, like everyone says, enjoy it, say thank yous. But to me, I'm like, hey, there's a bigger picture out there that he wants me to take care of. So I said my thank yous, but I'm like, hey, we still got to keep rolling.
Yeah. And, and things are going to continue to be put in front of you. I've noticed, because I started my podcast in November, and I'm up to episode 34. And I was doing, 6-7 podcasts a week. And I was so, excited about it. But then I realized, wow, I can't stay up till 3:00 in the morning every night editing. So I've scaled it down to doing 3 to 4 a week instead of 6 to 8 a week. And I've put myself on a nice schedule, and it's all starting to roll. But the right people are being put on my path.
Exactly.
And there have been, like you had said, over the past year, there's been some tremendous darkness. But even, and I lost my job. I had major health issues. I went into a really nice, solid depression. I figured go big or go home. If I'm going to get depressed, let's just sink right down to the bottom. So I did that too. And, but in the midst of all of that, so many ridiculously big blessings were plunked in front of me. And I'm thinking, oh, he's forcing me to lift my eyes when I just wanted to crawl on the couch and just put on music or not and just lay there. But all these ideas were popping in, and then all these people were coming into my life via Zoom calls and all these opportunities. Hey, we want you to speak here. Hey, could you speak on this summit? Hey, would you write an article or a story for this? And then all of a sudden I'm on speaking globally to global audiences. I'm in a global magazine, and, I'm like, whoa, this is amazing. And it's not me. None of that was me. It was not me. I'm like the little worker, the little worker bee, just buzzing around. He's saying, hey, keep going. And I often say he flicks me or nudges me, but most often it's like a 2x4 saying, child,
It's we're explicit content here. I'm gonna say he's got this big boot that he just kicks us in the ass.
Absolutely. Yes. And most every time when I look back, I'm like, yeah, thank you, because I needed that ass kicking.
Yeah. Oh, I'm pretty bullheaded upstairs, and I feel sorry. And I've been married before, but like I'm not dating purposely right now. But I feel sorry for the next.
There is nothing wrong with that.
Oh, I'm perfectly happy. And okay, my main thing is, and we're kind of off subject here, but with what I'm going to bring up, but my main thing is you got to be happy first. You got to grow first, and not like the analyzing grow. You got to just truly feel like you're growing. And people are like, hey, why don't you have this? Why don't you have that? And for me, I'm like, you know what? I'm been happily single for, well, obviously there's some growth and stuff that occurred from the divorce, but like 3 years. And I wouldn't change it for anything. Yeah. I needed it. And if something occurs in the next month or two, I'm perfectly happy with that. But my main deal going into a next relationship is, as a couple, yes, you want to lift each other up and all the fun, good stuff. But if that opposite person cannot make her own self, and I'm not going to sound mean how I say this, it's how it is.
No, I get completely what you're saying and where you're going.
Yeah, it's like, if I need to make myself happy first, and you need to make yourself happy first, and collectively, if it works, it works.
Right. Yes. And, I've had friends, male friends, that say, it seems like an awful lot of work to try and make someone happy. And I said, whoever told you it was your job to do that?
Yeah, you got to make yourself happy.
Your happiness resides in your own self. If you're happy together, that's wonderful, but it's not, I make you happy, you make me happy. That's not our jobs. But if we're happy together, hey, bonus. It's interesting. We have parallel lives and don't even know.
I didn't even. Okay, you want to get really goofy here? I'm going to tell you exactly what happened, because I'm smiling big when you're like, hey, speech and summits and all this stuff. Okay. Going through, I met this wonderful guest in August, and she's like, hey, I'm starting a summit in September. She's like, I love your story. She's now my co-host on this YouTube series. Me and her and her collective friends and my whole inner circle, we all invited each other in. It's a phenomenal group we have together. And she goes, hey, come join this, talk a little bit. You have a good story. I want you on here because of the inner strength of what you went through. I'm like, all right, cool. So I did it. I got so freaking nervous. I'm like, oh, what the hell am I going to say? Because just like you, I'm a blue collar kid growing up with parents in the mills, small business owners, whatever. It's like, my parents specifically said, if you're not sick, you get your ass to school and you pack a lunch.
That's
get your backpack ready. So it's that old school, hard nose, do it right. Grandma's going to kick your ass if you don't. She doesn't want people laying on the couch and being lazy. So get to work, that old school saying. And all of a sudden, this beautiful lady was directing it. And she's like, hey, I loved your story. Go on this next one. So I did 3 summits in, when did the first one start? October. So every month we had one, October, November, and December. December one was a oops, because I wasn't supposed to be, no, I'm sorry. The November one wasn't. I think it was like 3 summits in 6 weeks. It's like the time frame.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, cool. We'll roll this subject in the next one. And you have to tweak it a little bit, because you don't want to repeat a pattern if you have the same people. It just, you got to bring value. And all of a sudden she goes, yeah, here, take a look at my friend. I'm like, who's my friend? And me and her joke about this all the time. It's like this huge civility leadership guy that does like civility around the world. And I'm sure you probably bumped into him probably in some of these summits. And he's like, hey, he goes, thank all you guys for showing. He goes, I loved how you guys were helping the younger generation out. And I was so I was outside the age bracket for speaking. And she's like, hey, I love your story. She goes, make time for this. All right, cool. And all of a sudden he's like, hey, we're giving you the leadership award or whatever. I'm like, I got off the phone. I'm like, I'm getting what? and me and her were just laughing on the phone all the time. And then we go to the next summit, and she's like, hey, take a look at these guests. And this is a phenomenal guy. And the guest comes up. He's like, dude, email me anytime. And here was the creator and president of Priceline.com, the guy that created it.
Oh.
And I'm like, And I sent the email. I'm like, hey man, thanks for the summit, blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, no problem. Reach out anytime. And I'm like, I call her up again. I'm like, who the fuck are we talking to? and now like I just looked at her. We just smile all the time because she's releasing the book, and she's like, hey, I want you in the next one or whatever. But me and her we could laugh for like 20-30 minutes straight of just this, because she was a moderator for one of them and then she was a speaker for the other one, so she was in there saying, she like literally, she's like, what did you just win? I'm like, I don't know
What just happened.
yeah. And one of my buddies is part of that group too, and he's 45 minutes away, and just stuff just unravels that he just kind of laughed. He's like, same thing like we said, we're probably like the fifth person that had this. He's like, guys, you're not going to understand when you release a podcast. And he did it 3 years ago. And he's like, there's things that are going to come in your life that you're never going to expect. And he's opening up a nice commercial building with studios and a nice small business collaboration group. So it's gonna be a lot of people that do all kinds of small business together, helping everyone out, mentorship, whatever it is. It's a phenomenal place to be at. And me and him were talking Saturday because I had to drop off a TV we're donating. He goes, you weren't expecting it to blow up, were you? I'm like, nope. He goes, yeah, you're starting to get some speaking engagements, aren't you? I'm like, yep. He goes, he looked at me and smiled. He goes, you ready to take it to the next level? I'm like, yep. He's like, what are you going to plan on doing? I said, I don't know. It's got a life of its own. Let's go. And it's like, he's a planner and stuff too. Like, he's an engineer, very smart, phenomenal guy. And I just smiled, looked at him. I said, dude, I had no fucking clue this was going to happen. So I'm like, all this stuff that's laying in front of it, like, there's not even a spec. You're in the same boat. There's no, first of all, no time to be cocky. Secondly, you can't be cocky with this because you have no control what's happening.
No.
And for me, looking at it, everything else I was super cocky about. And now everyone's like, well, you're here, you're doing this, you're doing this. It's like, I'm like, thank God. I mean, to be honest, because
right.
Start a podcast, people. Just start a podcast. You'll understand it.
Yeah. And you never know. I mean, the ripples that we're causing, because the folks I have on mine on Let Fear Bounce, they're sharing stuff, and it's typically inspirational. You know, at the end, it turns out to be inspirational. And are they hard to listen to sometimes? Yeah. Your heart absolutely breaks. I've broken down in tears with my guests before while listening to their stories. And like I said earlier, keep it raw and keep it real, because life is not pretty. And there are people sitting in a dark spot thinking that they don't know where to turn or if they're even worth sticking around.
Exactly.
And if they happen to, I'm putting quotes here, randomly come across a podcast or a Facebook post that says, hey, got to listen to this, or they just see the title of the podcast and it resonates with them and they take that time to listen, that might be the one thing that turns them around. And why would we want to stop that, even if we never see the outcome? So I firmly believe, and because I'm an author and a writer and a freelancer, now I'm a podcaster, I firmly believe that the power of words, and when you put your heart into those words and you throw them out there, you get them out there in the world, God will see to it that they are landing right in front of who needs to read them or to hear them. And I firmly believe that. Did I firmly believe that 100% a year ago? I don't know. But this past year, pretty much God said, I am so sick of you humans and all your stupid shit. You're all going to your rooms. And so he put us in our rooms. He made us stay home.
Oh, my parents remarried.
Dad saying, get your ass in your room. I'm tired
exactly.
of it. Now, granted, God probably didn't use those words, but I think he said, shut up, you're pissing me off. Go to your room.
Oh man, I love my grandpa to death. He passed away last year, and he had this famous quote where he had 4 sons and a daughter. My mom was the daughter, and she wasn't raised up like a girl. She was raised up like one of the boys, and she can be a phenomenal woman. She can be a like she got raised up. She'll firmly believe that she's like, hey, I got raised up a tomboy. So
I did too.
yeah. And he had this famous thing, like what you just said, like we're sitting there, we're all going nuts. We could tease him. He'd be like, all right, out, y'all get out of here. What? He's like, I don't want to hear you. I don't get a word. Get the hell out of here. And it exactly like, that's why I'm smiling when you said that. Cause literally like the big man came down and said, you guys are fucking up. We're going to fix it.
Yeah. Go to your room. Yeah. Yeah. I believe that. Yeah, I do.
And I just smile because the ones that took advantage. Like this might sound cocky a little bit. If you guys did not take advantage of the last year and a half of COVID and being down and learning and not Netflix and chill all the time, sorry guys, there was never a perfect time to start out. I mean, right? It's never a perfect time to start to begin with. But whew.
Actually, though, I don't know if there's not ever a perfect time. I guess you can't look at it that way. To me, it's like, why wouldn't I start this now? Now is the time.
Yeah, you have to jump.
Yeah, you do. You just have to jump. And to me, the message that has been laid on my heart so strongly is we've got to spread more kindness. We have to spread more kindness, because this world, you think back to when COVID slammed, think of all the crap that was in the news at that time. The world was exploding in on itself.
Yep.
I mean, racial division, hate, riots. I mean, all kinds of, just awfulness. I haven't watched TV. I don't even turn my TV on anymore. And I don't listen to the news, because I'm thinking, you know what, if I do that, that's just, I'm letting negative in. So I'm not going to. I want to be a light. And even if it's just a pinprick to that person sitting in the darkness, that young lady on her knees with her head in her hands, thinking she's not worthy. And what's the point of her being here anymore? I want to be at that little tiny light that someone actually looks up and says, oh, just for that split second, but long enough that it stops all of that darkness. Does that sound egotistical or something? I used to think it might, but now I don't, because I firmly think that that's what's been laid on my heart to do. And I am following what I feel I'm being told to do.
As people of faith, I'm going to break this down a little bit, and I'm going to tap on not even the cocky thing. When you're given a gift, he doesn't care what's laying in front of you. He wants you to show it. And like I was saying with this podcast and speed and stuff, when you're given that gift, you don't even notice it, and you don't even care, and you can't even have enough time to be cocky, because he fills your schedule up with everything, right, that there's no ounce to be cocky.
Right.
And yeah, like to me, I think I'm just like both of us, we're blessed to share stories. Obviously I had some listeners say, hey dude, do the reverse role where it's like, have, my guests run the show once so I can explain my story a little bit more in depth. But when you're on path, and especially like mine with an addiction and stuff, people are starting to come up and say, hey dude, I had this issue. Hey dude, I've been fighting this, or hey, you're inspirational, or hey, you're, this is cool, I've been fighting with it. Like in the last week, probably 3-4 people came up to me and say, hey dude, I fought with alcohol, or how do you do it? Or, hey, I heard your mask comment on an addiction, or like, PTSD, where we like put a mask over ourselves to how, we feel free when the mask is over us.
Yeah.
And the people that don't understand it as like addicted personality, or like the PTSD, or any things or beasts or demons we're battling, that mask is our safe zone. And once you break it down that way, like I had freaking people's heads turned. They're like, dude, I heard it that way, but I never had it enlightened, like publicly. And
Yeah.
it's amazing. And I mean, you can
completely understand. I'm sitting here like nodding my head constantly, like a bobblehead. I wrote a story. I felt very, very strongly led to write a story, literally about the day in the life of living with PTSD. And my story began literally from the minute I woke up to the minute I tried to get to sleep at the end of the day. And it kind of spewed out of me. I walk my dog twice a day, and I'm, like I said earlier, I'm in the country. So, and that's where I breathe. I can breathe and pray when I'm out walking in the fields and see the deer running around and my dog chasing them, just peace. It's peace. And one of those walks just said, got to share that day in the life. And I'm like, no.
Absolutely not.
Because that means I'm letting my wall down and people are going to see the real me. And kept on coming. I'm like, son of a gun. So, I got back to the house and got a coffee, and I kept myself busy, but it wouldn't leave. And I'm like, and then when I get that, I have to get in front of my computer, and I call it just spewing it out. I just type, no rhyme or reason. I just like vomit it out,
Edit later.
Yeah. And then I walk away.
Yep.
I always say I let it simmer for a day or two. And I came back to it a day or two later and read it and went, oh my gosh, that is so, I'm actually, my feelings hurt for this person who wrote this. It was like I was third person.
Yeah.
And then I shared it publicly, and the response I got said we would never, ever know that that's what was going on within you every day for so many decades. And they, I was always fearful, I guess, and I'll be honest about that people would look at me as weak. And that's one of my things I'm still working on, that people will look at me as weak. And when I let that story out into the world, not one time did the word weak ever come up. People were saying, wow, I am in awe of your strength. And that you fight those battles every day and no one would know it. And it takes a lot to fight those battles every day. A lot of strength and a lot of courage to take on another day. And I had never looked at it that way because I was so stuck in my own bubble. But when you let that out, a day in the life, and then you go back and you read your own story, like, wow, I'm a mess.
Yeah.
But then it's like, you know what? But none of us are perfect. We are all imperfect. God sees us as masterpieces. And I look at myself, I'm a work in progress. I am a hot mess. I'm a hot mess, but I'm a work in progress. And I try to be better, even if it's just a smidge than I was the day before. Do I succeed all the time? I don't know. That's up to him to decide, But I'm just a big old ball of mess, and sharing my story seems to, and I know has helped others. And as time goes on, it'll help more. And now that I've got that realization that's been just sunk into me, I'm like, I'm just going to rock. I'm going to rock it. I'm just going to keep on doing it. I'm rolling with it.
Yeah. Keep hitting the gas. The word vulnerability has been, and this is the second, probably 8th time I heard it in the last week, which means, haha, Chad, you got to be more vulnerable. That word popped up.
Doesn't it?
Oh, this is how it happened. All right. And we can laugh at this. I know I'm in the right path when this occurs. And when this occurs, it means you better fucking do it, because he's going to yell at you if you don't do it. A couple of weeks ago, it's like, hey, dude, this is awesome. Pod is awesome, whatever. We want to hear your story. I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's like, thank you very much in a nice way, because we're moving so fast in this. You just kind of like, you give the hip reaction. thank you very much for being listening. I appreciate it. That stuff. Tuesday come along, one of my church mothers, and not my mom, but just as what they would say in the South, church mamas, which means you don't get them pissed off.
Yeah, exactly.
She comes out, hey, this stuff is awesome, but she's like, I want to see the next level you. I'm like, what? She's like, you're at like a 5 right now, which is very good. But she's like, I know there's more to your story. And I know, and she's like, I'm not even like framing you, but she's like, you got way more power behind you than you think to help people.
Yep.
I'm like, okay. She's like, I want you to be more vulnerable, open up. I'm like, and it is that mom talk where it's like, oh crap, mom wants me to do this.
Right. You cringe. Your shoulders go up and you're like, ah.
Friday came or Saturday came, that same pattern occurred. And I was down delivering the TV and someone was bringing up something. And one of my buddies like, yeah, dude, there's like 3 people here fighting addiction, like that are sobered up, but that one through that understand that mass thing. And I'm like, all right, I got that part. Sunday rolls around. I'm like, God, I'm busy. I'm wiped out. And all of a sudden our lovely church message is 3 steps to make yourself vulnerable. I'm like, boom. And I'm like, all right, bud, I'm paying attention.
Yep. Yeah. I get it now. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and it's kind of building on you guys too. Cause like the guy before was pretty much vulnerable and you're like vulnerable. I'm like, I fucking get it, God. All right. I'm swearing. I get it. I'm listening. Just let me have time. So and I'm going to go back to that first thing I said earlier, when you're in check and everything's aligned, when you give him time, trust me, church mama said, give him time. And I'm from the North and I'm saying it that way. And that's her new nickname. And she can smile when she says that because she knows exactly who she's talking about. When church mama says you sit down and talk, you sit down and talk to him. And I think the book with Bear Grylls had the same thing. So it's like somehow in the next couple of weeks, I need to lay out my story, how to be vulnerable, try to get past that shell and not be kind of blah and average, like how we were. I would say it's that mindset you were before you released it.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of break yourself and be more free with it. And when you're in check with him and everything's lining up, you have to do it. Trust me, you have to do it because the good Lord's going to come with the damn 2x4 and whack you over the head.
Exactly. Yeah. And you'll be tripping and flying forward going, whoa, what was that? Oh, okay. Okay.
So, we are going to end it because we cannot drink. Me and you can go forever on this stuff, but we provided
that flew by quick, didn't it?
Yeah. We provided so much value in a 40-minute episode that I'm just going to shut right up, which is tough to do, and let you finish it here. So where can everyone reach you, find you on social media, Facebook, all the fun stuff, all the social media stuff? Just lay it out online here and we'll get everyone listening to your stuff.
Okay. They can find me on Facebook and my Facebook page is called She Writes Words. They can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Kim Lengling. Also, I have a Facebook page for the books, which is called When Grace Found Me, and my podcast, which is Let Fear Bounce. And that's available on like 12, 15 different platforms, all the regular ones, Spotify and, all those other ones. So I can't think of them off the top of my head, or just Google my name and you will find me.
Which means the SEO is working, guys.
That's right.
So I'm going to end it. I'm going to shut up because my voice is going to be gone by the end of the day. So thank you very much. I will look forward to working with you in the future with whatever it is. We will get lined up for something. So thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks for having me. Take care.
No problem. Thank you.